Welcome into another edition of the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Paulicki. He's Jacob Liberta. We're a Minnesota sports podcast. So if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button if you're a big-time Minnesota sports fan. If you're a Timberwolves fan, give this video a like because your Timberwolves have won 4 games in a row. Granted, not against the best teams, but, we'll take a 4-game winning streak whenever we can get it with this squad. So second 4-game winning streak in the Chris Finch coaching era for the Timberwolves. Absolutely demolishing teams like the Spurs, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, who are just already done for the season. Pelicans are atrocious. But still, regardless, it's nice to see them keep their foot on the gas, really like blowing out the Grizzlies by 43 points. That's extremely impressive. And all this is coming after a hard-fought game against the Suns that they lost at the end of the game. So what's your overall impression been of the Timberwolves here over the last 4 or 5 games, and what's really changed for them to get them to play so well?
Yeah, it feels great to win 4 in a row, especially with this team. It feels like that's a huge feat for this franchise compared to any others that we follow. I think this is great momentum. I think this speaks to the team's ability to overcome adversity, which is huge to see because, like in years past, we get on a losing streak. It feels like there's no turning back, and the season's just going to nosedive. And that would be so unfortunate being like
Yeah.
15 games into the season or whatever it was. We're sitting at 4-9. It's like, or 13, I should say, 13 games in the season. And sometimes it's already over right there. And it's like you have so much season left, but it just feels so demoralizing. But then you see them string together these wins against teams, like you said, aren't the best by any means, but they're games that you should win, and they went out and won them. And especially against teams that are around them in the standings, that it's going to be important to be able to beat to get into the playoffs or get in the playing game at the very least. Like these teams specifically calling out Sacramento and San Antonio. I think those are both teams you're competing with to be top 10 in the West, and to win both of those back to back. That's massive. I think those are ones you have to have for tiebreaker scenarios if it comes down to that. And I'm feeling really good about our chances to at least be playing in a playing game at the end of the season, which is great because that was probably the base goal for the season. Anything more than that, probably gravy. And I feel like there is a lot more to get with this team. And I certainly there's a lot to get excited about right now on a 4-game win streak back to almost 500. And then, like you mentioned, that Grizzlies game, I think that's the best we've seen in this Cat, D'Lo, Ant era. I think it was a phenomenal performance, top to bottom. We scored almost 140 points in regulation, which is just ridiculous. And then allowing less than 100 on the other end to a team that can definitely score buckets with the rest of them, especially when you start with Ja Morant, one of the elite point guards in this league. So it's like that's a statement performance. So I'm really excited about where we're at, especially compared to where we were sitting a week ago after that kind of crushing Suns defeat, when it's like, you had a really good team on the ropes, just couldn't quite do it. But then we responded well and put together more good performances to win 4 in a row here, averaging like 23 points margin of victory per game these last 4. Like that's crazy. So it's great that we're playing good basketball. We really needed it after a pretty slow start to the season when we kind of thought it would get off to a maybe a faster start.
For sure. And like just looking at the landscape of the West, the Wolves are currently the 10 seed, a half game behind the Lakers, who are currently getting trounced by the Knicks with LeBron James suspended for 1 game. You're within a game of the 6th seed, and from 6, 7, 8 is Memphis, Portland, and Denver, who none of them have been very impressive by any means so far. Obviously, the Wolves just crushed Memphis.
Denver just lost Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah, he's out for probably the season. Jamal Murray's out for at least half the season, I believe. Jokic, it's going to, remains to be seen how much he can really do on his own, but I don't fear the Nuggets by any means. I think Portland is still a pretty decent team. Obviously, once Dame really gets it rolling, he's obviously very good. But in terms of like their supporting cast, like CJ McCollum's kind of fallen off. Nurkic really isn't that great anymore. Not that he was ever like a star or anything.
He was better before, I felt like, though. That team can win at home, though. I noticed like their home road splits is ridiculous. Like I think the last I saw, they're like 8-1 at home, but they've only won a game on the road.
Yep, 1-7 on the road. That's crazy. I didn't even realize that until you said that, but that's insane, actually. Must be that Western time zone, Pacific time zone difference that's helping them out there at home. But anyways, and then
the coast.
Then you got the Wolves. So like they're within a game of the 6th seed. They're within a game and a half of the 5 seed, which is the Dallas Mavericks. I really don't think they're that great of a team either. And that's kind of what's crazy about this West is you got Golden State
2 games back from like 4th in the conference or something.
Exactly, because that's where the Clippers reside. So you got Golden State at 1, Phoenix at 2. Phoenix is obviously on like a 13-game win streak. They're going nuts right now. Utah is still a very good team. Just so they're kind of like the new age Spurs. They have a good system going in place. But then starting at 4, you got the Clippers, who obviously have just destroyed the Wolves this season. I think we've already played them, what, 3 times?
I think we
2 or
played them
3
all three
times?
times. Yeah, I think 3 times. I'm not sure if there's a fourth on the schedule or not, but yeah, the Clippers have come out and dominated us every time. So that's not a great matchup. We'd probably want to draw.
But I have a hard time seeing them finishing as like the 4th seed in the Western Conference. So like, I guess
Yeah.
out of all those teams, I really don't know who would be the 4th seed going into the season. I would have maybe said Memphis just because I really think highly of Ja Morant.
But
But
their defense is atrocious.
it is, yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, they have some injury problems too. They kind of bungled their offseason. So I don't know, man. Like it's a very gettable Western Conference in terms of like it's top heavy with Golden State and Phoenix, and maybe you can even throw Utah in that conversation. But
Mhm.
like the Lakers do not scare me right now. Maybe by the end of the season they'll have it together, but they're completely in
But
flux. LeBron's barely been playing. Russell Westbrook's been horrible.
you know,
So I don't fear really any of these like 4 or 5 teams that are in front of us.
no, I think that's the huge benefit or the huge advantage for the Wolves in this Western Conference compared to some of these other teams, like namely the Lakers. I would think of here, as far as like a team gelling and playing together and overcoming things really as the
Yeah.
season goes on, and not getting too many distractions in the locker room that's going to derail them. Whereas like the Lakers, I feel like these guys have been all the personalities on this team have been so used to playing for themselves, really, as far as like being the biggest personalities really in the league, not just on their own team, but like
Yeah.
just being in the limelight all the time. So it's kind of hard for some of these guys probably to take a back seat to what's going on, and really take a back seat as far as production goes, just plain and simple basketball talk
Mhm.
beyond just like playing together as a team. I think guys like I just never liked the Russell Westbrook fit in the first place with the Lakers, and I
Yeah.
feel like that's more evident than ever now. I feel like you said, you can never um, count them out to not get together at all this season. Like they could just as well do it by the end and be fine. And because it's LeBron, that's the ultimate equalizer. But at the same time, it's like
Yeah.
they got to get together at some point. And right now, that certainly doesn't look great.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's a very gettable Western Conference, and by no means am I expecting the Wolves to be a top 6 seed or something. That'd be incredible because you could avoid a play-in scenario and end up playing like the 3 seed, which
And
would
play
currently
a
be the
winnable first
Jazz.
round series. Yeah,
Yeah, because we beat the Jazz all 3 times last year, and
yeah, we
I don't
did. You
know.
never know.
I see how it transfers to this season, but like I don't know. We'd have a decent shot against them, I would think. But
Yeah.
I don't want to get way ahead of ourselves here because
Oh,
the Wolves are fully capable of going back and into losing 7 of 8 like they did previously. So
yeah, they got a tough slate coming up. There aren't a lot of gimmies on the schedule here. I think the rest of the calendar year, I think it was John Krasinski tweeted the other day. It was like, oh yeah, or maybe it wasn't John. It was one of the guys on the Timberwolves beat. Basically said if you look at on the schedule, all those teams are playing for something this year. They're not just in rebuild mode like we've been playing with like the Pelicans 3 times. We started the season with the Rockets. You know,
yeah,
we put a lot of games against teams that probably aren't going to do much this year, but I think we'll really get to test ourselves starting with a game with Miami coming up here.
yeah, exactly. The Miami one will be big, but they're playing the Pistons tonight, coming off a back to back, or they'll be on the second night of a back to back with going against the Wolves. I know we got the Sixers coming up this upcoming weekend.
That's
The
always
Indiana
get your popcorn out for Cat and Embiid.
the Indiana Pacers aren't off to the best start, but they've got good players with Sabonis, Miles Turner, Malcolm Brogdon. Like they got a decent team. So just seeing how we can match up with a team like that, I think, is kind of the true litmus test because it's like it's that next tier. And blowing out Memphis was great, but was that really the Wolves or was like Memphis just having a horrible night?
Yeah,
So
true.
if you can see more of that consistently against these middle of the pack teams, then I'll be really, really encouraged. Because like against like a Golden State, I wouldn't expect us to win that game ever. Or Phoenix, I think we can hang because we beat them last year. We played with them right to the end this year. Granted, it was a home game, but I don't know. Phoenix, I think we can hang, but Phoenix is definitely, I think, probably the second best team in the West.
Yeah, I'd say so too. I'm impressed with them, very impressed with them actually, that they haven't had a finals hangover like I thought they might after
Yeah,
losing the Bucks last year in such a demoralizing way, going up 2-0 and then losing 4 in a row. Like that's pretty crushing for a franchise, and probably not one that's easy to forget and get up from, but they have so far this season. And that entire team has come back strong, and they're ready to go.
So, what are your overall thoughts on the Wolves starting five? D'Lo, Pat Bev, Ant, Vando, and Cat. They have the best net rating of any starting five in the NBA. I believe it's like a plus 50 or something. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? That the Wolves have the most impactful starting five currently in the NBA.
That's straight up insane. I never would have guessed that. The rating right now obviously is unsustainable, but still,
Yeah.
there's something to be said there. That this five can. I think this is the magic elixir for Chris Finch as far as success goes for this team going forward.
And what I find insanely interesting is like D'Lo has the best plus minus on the team, and his
Oh, I
shooting
know.
has been
His
pretty
shooting
horrible
sucks. Yeah,
to start the
exactly. It's just
season. And even like Ant, I feel like has not been as good as he's capable of being for sure, but he definitely hasn't been like a super efficient player thus far. He had that great 48-point game, and then I think he followed it up with like a 9 or 12-point game or something. So I'm not exactly sure how the Wolves could do much worse, really. I mean, because your star players aren't even playing at their absolute best, and Cat's finally starting to turn a corner. It seems. Um, like I don't know, maybe they'll start to figure because as soon as shots start falling, as soon as like Malik Beasley starts hitting shots more consistently, as soon as like Torian Prince hits shots consistently, Jaden McDaniels is kind of starting to figure it out too. It looks like if you can get some of these guys rolling more often, the Wolves are going to be even in better shape than what they have been these last 4 or 5 games.
Oh, I totally agree. I think this has been a huge jump. I love that you brought up McDaniels. I think him coming off the bench is really helping his game. I think him pointing out the bench units really brought out the best in him because I know he had a pretty slow start to the season. He had a whole lot of fouls, and that's dramatically been cut down recently, which is great because obviously you don't want to see him just straight up hacking guys out there.
Yeah,
But really, there's a lot to be said about the adjustments Finch has made here to the rotations, and I think it's
for sure.
helped his team a lot. I mean, obviously, when you win 4 in a row, everything that you're doing feels like it's the right move. But I think this is also sustainable to an extent too. Like I said, the plus 50 net rating with this starting five right now, no, that's not going to continue. But I still think that when it's that large, I think it's obviously could be successful in the long term, just not to that degree. But and then you got Beasley getting extended run now with less guys in the rotation. Really, I mean they're playing what
Yep.
7 8 guys pretty
Hmm.
consistent basis compared to where they started the season with. So I think Beasley getting some sustained run is really helping his rhythm, and I think
Yep.
him playing sustained minutes from like middle of the first quarter through the middle of the second quarter, I think that's really helping them because I feel like when guys are playing in just these short spurts, it's hard to just get going sometimes. So I think
Yeah.
that's really helped Beasley here.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And the fact that he gets to come in when D'Lo goes out, then you don't have D'Lo kind of ball hogging,
Exactly.
jacking up all these bad shots. You got guys like Ant and Cat finding Beasley open in the corner, just stuff like that. I mean, granted, Ant hasn't been the best passer, although I think he's been better lately at driving and kicking, which is
Hmm.
important because he could truly be like LeBron in that respect, where he draws so much attention when he goes to the basket that someone is always going to be wide open outside the 3 point line.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. This guy, he commands so much attention from the defense, and rightfully so. I think this guy is just a 3 level scorer that you have to contend with everywhere, especially at the rim. He's most dangerous. I think he's a threat to put anybody and everybody on a poster and
Yeah.
on any given night at any given time. So I think you definitely, as a defense, got to focus on him. But then you got versatile scorer like Cat. I think that's huge. And really, once D'Lo can get going and find more consistency in his scoring, which truthfully coming into the season, everybody would have said is his best trait. I think
Yeah.
once he gets that going, then man, this sky's the limit for this team potentially. I think there's just this unknown ceiling that they have that you just want to see where that really is because the offensive efficiency with these 3 guys with Cat, Ant, and D'Lo, I think can be sky high. The weird
Yeah.
thing is that like they're some of the best as far as trio goes in the league and defensive rating right now, which
Right.
you would have never expected with these 3 guys because they're all obviously offensive first, especially with D'Lo and Cat. You feel like you've had a large enough sample size to know like these guys aren't elite defenders by any means, and really
Yep.
quite frankly, not even average, I would say. But this year we've seen drastic improvement, and you've seen that Ant gets a lot of possession enders with some nice steals and blocks. But
Yep.
I It's really fun to see us really come together, and start building something, especially pulling out something that's unexpected, like good defensive performance. Like we've never seen a Timberwolves team have good team defense, and now here we are. That albeit we still got to see more. It's some of the trends this team is on right now probably won't continue
Yeah.
totally, but if we're middle of the pack for defense, I think that's probably all you can really ask for of this roster.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're seventh right now, which I don't see that continuing because I saw
Probably not, but
I think the Wizards are also in like the top seven. That
I
probably
feel like
won't
the
last
Wizards are
either.
fluke. Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, we'll probably fall down a little bit, but like you said, if we can just be middle of the pack, keep giving an effort on defense, because we're still like leaving shots open because we're scrambling so much, and teams are just
yeah,
missing shots, and it helps when you
yeah,
play the horrible teams. But um,
yeah,
eventually, some of these teams are going to start knocking down these shots, but also maybe that makes a 20-point game a 5-point game or something. So maybe it's just tighter games. But either way, I think the Wolves are slowly starting to figure it out. There's no doubt in my mind they're at least the 10th best team in the West, if not even better. I mean, the
totally
teams
agree.
that are below them are just horrific. So they
Yeah,
shouldn't have an issue making the play-in tournament. And then from this point on, it's just about seeing improvement as the season goes, keeping our core healthy, um, and really see if they can make any sort of a push to be a higher seed than the 10.
yeah, I totally agree. I'd love to see this team really um, run away from those bottom five teams in the West. And because at that point, I think everybody coming into the season, that's probably where they set the bar, at least a realistic goal goes, is just getting into those playing games. But if you can like cement yourself into at least that, like pretty early on in the season, then you start feeling like you're playing with house money. And then
Yeah.
you're building confidence, having that cushion and probably picking up a good amount of wins along in the process. So I think once you get to that point, then you could be a really dangerous team because you're playing with nothing to lose because you're already meeting your expectations of the season. Anything else, like I said, is just house money. It's gravy on top. So truthfully, I think that'd be a fun place to get to where we're going out every night and we're giving it everything we got. And if we come up short, we come short. Oh, well, the expectation wasn't to seriously contend yet this year. It was just to take
Yep.
steps forward towards just getting in the playoffs and maybe making a little noise. So I'd really love to see us get to that point, and hopefully we can get there by, like, let's say the All-Star break or something where we're feeling great about, like, yeah, this team is definitely at least a playing team, if not better.
And the good thing about this team is the core is going to be back next year. You got
Yeah,
all of your big three
exactly.
under contract for another couple of years.
Yep.
Beasley's still under contract for another year or two. McDaniel's obviously on his rookie deal. You'd have to sign Pat Bev back, but if this team is showing signs of true improvement and possible contention, I'm sure he'd love to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Torian Prince, same thing. So I don't know. Like you're going to have your core for sure. And Chris Finch, I think, is a really good coach, and I think he deserves a ton of credit for the turnaround this team's had lately, and just trying to get the most out of this team's potential. And I think once they truly start figuring out this offense, it's just going to be a totally different story, even if the defense starts to fall off a little bit. So, yeah, that'll do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Kind of a long-winded Timberwolves discussion, but hey, the Wolves are looking good, and they're fun to watch when they're looking good. So
Exactly.
certainly can't complain about that. But like I said earlier, if you're new to the channel, you're a Minnesota sports fan, Minnesota Timberwolves fan, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a like as well. Feel free to follow us on both Twitter and Instagram and leave your comments below how you're feeling about the Timberwolves, what you're liking out of the squad, what you think about the Wolves having the most impactful starting five in the NBA, and if you think they can keep it going and how high you think they can climb in the West. So leave your comments below for sure, and thanks for watching.